Welcome to hashtag 52 Needs, and this week we are exploring appreciation. And I have with me the wonderful Dr. Pauline Crawford, who is known as the ambassador of magical conversations and lead player for gender dynamics intelligence. Dr. Pauline is an international best-selling author, speaker, educator, and entrepreneur, Chief Vision Officer of Corporate Heart Infant International, a people, culture, and performance consultancy since 1999. With over 30 years delivering corporate engagement experience. Let me start that one again. I'm just fumbling my way through that. So welcome to hashtag 52 Needs. And this week we are exploring appreciation. And I'm so delighted to have with me Dr. Pauline Crawford, who is known as the ambassador of magical conversations and lead player for gender dynamics intelligence. Dr. Pauline is an international best-selling author, speaker, educator, and entrepreneur, Chief Vision Officer of Corporate Heart International, a people, culture, and performance consultancy since 1999. With over 30 years delivering corporate engagement experiences in the UK, Asia Pacific, and the USA, her passion and purpose is to enlighten and educate leaders individually and collectively to value and leverage their real synergy, that is their true potential, bringing diverse individuals together. Dr. Pauline works with professional men and women in executive C-suites and boardroom roles, and with groups and communities to establish values-based performance at all levels of a business. Her approach produces healthy, high-performance cultures, people, and profit-delivering results. Welcome, Pauline.
Hello, Angela. It's wonderful to see you.
And you.
Yeah.
Okay, so work. Appreciation at work, where we are appreciated for and recognized for our achievements, not necessarily for being wonderful human beings.
Well, therein lies the challenge. And it's one of the reasons I set out Corporate Heart way back in 99, because it's a good example. I was in a very plush office in London with very lovely people, but I wasn't appreciated. I wasn't valued for what I could bring, which I thought I could bring to this particular management consultancy. And I really thought, gosh, I was being paid decent money. I was in a lovely place, and it just didn't feel right. And it really was a lack of appreciation at a personal level. So it was okay about what I did. They would say, that was good. But I was trying to push the boat out in terms of men and women working with much more synergy together. And these guys wouldn't even take me into the City of London because I was a woman. And I thought, no, that's not really appreciation. So I set up Corporate Heart because, and it's 30 years later and things are not changing fast enough. We have a life at work, and it does not make any sense to me at all that we don't appreciate life. And life means people, so appreciating people. And I think one of the things that's occurred is that we don't make a direct link between appreciating people and performance and customers. So now that we've got this rather strangely crazy economic pandemic world, we really need to appreciate people much more than ever before, not just for their achievements, but understanding there's an equation. So I'm a mathematician here, healthy, engaged people who are appreciated give much better performance. They're much more creative, and they attract customers who are much more loyal. And that's what you need today.
Yeah.
So we have had a very traditional culture in the world, which has been, it's only what you achieve. It's what's on that piece of paper. It's what on your grade. It's on the hierarchy. And it's very debilitating if you don't want to be there. And yet people stay because they want to earn money. And that's that vicious circle. We need to make a value cycle circle, which says people matter.
Yeah. And
they will do better when they're appreciated. So it's not allowing people to get away with nothing. They still need to do the work. But it's a double, that was a fantastic proposal you put in. I love the way you did it, and you presented it with such a personal edge as well. It's just putting these little extra pieces in makes all the difference.
Better than good work.
It's work, and go, okay, so why doesn't this happen?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the one. my favorite is always when they say, so you did this well, but now, like in sales teams, I've heard this. So we made budget this month, guys. So let's put in a stretch budget to prove that we can do better. So all the appreciation has just gone straight out of the window.
Yes.
Because, achieving the set goal was not good enough. Now it has to be better.
Well, that's right. And it's a balance sheet that is not on the balance sheet. And this was one of the reasons I set off with corporate art, studying how people were at work. So I did a major piece of research back in 2003-04, where I asked companies, and we had some serious players in there, including the police force of London, the HR of the police force in London, which was interesting because the questions were, in your experience of this company, how do most people behave? And there were various questions in there, but there were questions in there about appreciation. Mm-hmm. And when we scored it all, it was so interesting that the public sector was worse than the private sector, which wasn't surprising, but that there was generally this feeling of, we've got to keep doing what we're doing, even if we're going to fall off the end of the platform and actually go into OC health because we're so ill. So yeah, I mean, we have to keep on working even when we're exhausted. And this is this long hours culture, which makes no sense. It's like saying that the human body has no appreciation energy that relates to the bottom line. And whereas it does. And where does it all come from? It comes from leadership and the culture. And it's something that I think in the pre-pandemic was getting to a really dangerous level of exhaustion. And now when we need to actually make more economic expansion, we need to value the human body even more. So lots of things like health and diet are really, but appreciation, interesting enough, is a free resource. So if people understand that, leaders, team leaders, whoever they are, and people in a team, I think it would change the whole dynamic of what we're doing. And it's free. It's like,
yeah, and people think that leaders I have talked to think that they're giving something away. They're giving away their authority or their impact by praising people or by appreciating people, and it just means they go soft on people. So you have to crack the whip in order to keep people on their toes. Why?
Well, it's the old thing about the carrot or the stick. And of course, in here, we do need to address the gender dynamic balance, because men and women do things in different ways. And yes, there are different types of men and different types of women. So coming from that traditional hard-nosed profit matters, shareholders count, you've got to achieve, you've got to do better than the next, you've got to step on their shoulders to get up the ladder, all that stuff, which, back in the 80s, 90s, whatever people can remember, it's not what we need to do now. And I'm hoping that the world is realizing this, because that's the good thing about COVID and the pandemic. It's made us stop and think. Now, not all corporates are doing that yet, but the business world needs to address this, because there's so many tensions around. It's impacting the energy of the body, the employees. They're nervous, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And if we can turn that around in a second, in a heartbeat. Now, why people don't do it, I think, is because it hasn't been factored in. So we need a story, we need dare I say, we need the media and the social media behind us. And I think that's happening in lots of areas. But we also need to understand we do this in different ways. So not everybody will be the same. And for some men, it will be still done in bullet points. And for them to put that extra little personal touch in, they may have to learn it. And for other men who are more sensitive, they may do it, but they may feel nervous because the system hasn't been like that. And then we have women who've been challenging the status quo for decades, the vote, the boardroom, getting in there. And now they don't want to be what they might consider soft. So what we need to do is to make sure it's it's not a soft resource. I love that about soft skills. They're not actually soft.
Yeah.
They're really, really important. It's like watering a plant. You know, if you have plants and you like them and you don't water them, what they're going to do? They're going to die.
I talk to my plants every day. I walk to I have a little fig tree and it has a new leaf, and I had a little happy dance. I said, "Oh, you're growing a new leaf." No, two. How wonderful, you know. I think, you know, expressing appreciation has never really hurt, no matter whether it's a plant or a human being.
Well, it is. And I think what's interesting is when people might do that at home and then go to work. And traditionally that has been men, because men have created a very yes, no, bullet point, it's got to be profit motive until recently. But at home, they might be quite appreciative. But they also might not say what they're thinking. And that's the other thing, is that I would give this lovely example. I was working in Malaysia. I lived in Malaysia for 4 years. I was working with men and women, actually in the Ministry of Women. And one young man, we were talking about appreciation. So the exercise was mixed tables, talking about appreciation, and do men and women see appreciation differently? And this young man, well, he probably wasn't that young, but everyone in Malaysia looks young. And he said, I don't think there's a problem, because, you know, I really appreciate my wife. And I could see all the women in the room going, And I said, okay. And I was very even. I said, oh, that's really lovely. And he was very genuine. So I said, what do you actually say to her? And he looked at me for about, seemed like ever, but 30 seconds, like, what do you mean? I said, well, okay, you come in from work. Does she work? Yes. She comes in from work. And what do you say? Because you say you appreciate her. And he said, well, I kind of keep out of her way because she's dealing with the kids and making supper. And as he was saying it, he kind of realized that although he had this deep appreciation inside, he actually didn't say anything. And I said, you know, and he said, oh my God. I said, just literally a touch on the shoulder. Gosh, I really appreciate you. Is there anything I can do? Shall I keep out of your way? Oh, yeah, that's fine. That will make us so different to that woman. And so that is true in the workplace as well. So I think sometimes men don't understand why it's important. And now that we're in this vulnerable place in the world, it's far more important for all of us, because we're all suffering from the unknown and the uncertainty of what the pandemic is bringing us. Yeah. And as I said before, it's got to be learned, but it's a free resource, and we don't have to go into, you know, an A1 class. We can actually just use a few basics. And I remember one time working with a class on gender dynamics, and this man came up to me at the end. He said, oh, I really get this, that women, they need time to have that time to chatter, but in the workplace. And I said, yes. He said, so how long do I need to wait? But I love the fact that he asked chatter.
That's not my experience.
But it was a good question, because men are often very instructional. So he got the point, but because he didn't know what to do, he needed a parameter. So I said, well, you know, give it 10 minutes. Let her speak, whatever it is, and don't interrupt. And in fact, there's a piece of research. I think the lady was called Margaret Bryan or Burns. I had to look it up, but it was actually in Australia. And she was employed by a CEO to create a different respect and appreciation between men and women. The CEO actually got 6 of his top men in, and he said, I want you to sign this piece of paper that you will do whatever I tell you to do. Now, they all obeyed without understanding what it was, and they signed to it. And it was an instruction. They each were given a senior aspiring woman who wasn't at their level, was just below. They were instructed to meet her once a week and have a conversation, which was, oh, hello, Angela, what are you working on and how are you doing? And then you had to button your lip for at least 10 minutes and listen. And then you were to say, that's really interesting. Would you come and present that to my team on Monday? So these were and it was very specific instructions. So the men went out and went, oh, anyway, I've signed to it, so I'll do it. And the research showed that after 6 weeks, the energy of the place had totally shifted, because the women were going, oh, I'm being appreciated.
Yeah.
And the men were going, oh, I got a lot more out of that than I thought, as a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
But it shows the value of appreciation and the execution.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the other thing, is we can't just say, oh yeah, we'll just learn to say X, Y, and Z every day. It's got to be tailored to how different people
and
are
it's
going
got
to
to
achieve it.
be specific. And a lot of people are not specific. I just actually read a while ago, there was a study at Stanford University where they discovered that when men were appreciated, they were appreciated much more specifically than women.
Yes.
So women would be an asset to the team, and men would be, appreciated for bringing in 3 major contracts.
Well, there is something in this, because in studying different types of men and women, the men will gain a personal satisfaction from that material appreciation, whereas women want that, but they also want the emotional response. And that's where I find in my studies, asking men and women the same question, they respond differently. Because men will go, well, it's either that or that. And women will go, well, it's and. And often when women want to express their ideas, they pull too much emotion in, and the man can't hear it until there's some kind of connection. And appreciation is actually the easiest thing, like saying, well, I really appreciate that you've all come to this meeting because the focus is something we're going to do together, but I believe we'll all do it differently. You immediately create, for 6 to 10 individuals who are all different, oh, he might not know what their difference is going to be, but the appreciation is about people being there. So we can appreciate different things. I think in business, sometimes people think, as you said, I can't do that, that personal stuff, because that might seem to be that I'm, trying to chat somebody up or whatever it is. It's about being honest and specific, attached to something which is material.
Yeah, and important to the person.
Yes.
It's not just a storyline.
If everybody thought, right, obviously if somebody doesn't do their work well, you have to tackle that issue, but they always say, appreciate them first, share what maybe is not going right. Simon Sinek talks about this, and then look at a mutual joint solution. Like, you did that part really well. I love the attention to detail. Didn't quite hit the mark on what we were trying to get to do. And maybe together we can look at different ways of using your skills. I mean,
okay, this is where I have a little bit of an antibody response, because as soon as you say to somebody, hey, Pauline, I really like your necklace, but I don't like your scarf, or I think you should wear a different scarf, what's the thing that you hear?
Oh, you hear the negative.
Yeah.
But that's why you've got to be very careful in
keeping it separate. I always say, when you appreciate somebody, stick with the appreciation, stop right then and there. If you've got any suggestions for what they can do differently in the future, because it hasn't worked, do it later, even if it's just 10 minutes later or half an hour later or the next day, but keep a time difference in there, because this whole thing of the brain is wired for negativity. It looks for what doesn't work. And it weighs 3 times as much. It's heavier. Any kind of perceived criticism is just so much more, because it creates that whole, I'm not good enough, or something I'm not fitting in. So because, it's the same, whether you're attacked by a saber-toothed tiger or you lost competence or status, same difference to the brain. So I always say, please keep it apart. So forgive me, that I'm really passionate about that.
I would agree with you if it's a extreme critical dissemination kind of thing. But I think if it's something where you see somebody it's just short of something which is a compliment to the first thing, then it works. It just depends how you say it. So I try to think, because in terms of, for instance, in the image world, where we would work with people around what suits them best, I'd often find that with somebody who you were color analyzing, they might say, oh, well, I hate reds. So I think, okay, I won't put those on you. But as you develop the feeling of the other colors, you might say, well, all your colors are very soft. This is probably why you have a reaction to red. So let me just try this one coming in. And usually they'll go, oh my God, I never thought of that as red. That wasn't what I saw as red. So it's about the full criticism. I agree, you can take it into a different environment, but it's also about building up the culture which allows failures. And this is the other thing that I'm very keen on. And I love the example of Sarah Blakely, which I don't know whether you know. Sarah Blakely is the founder and MD of Spanx, and she's a very, very successful businesswoman. And she quotes that her original teacher, who was her father, really helped her, because every single week she started, she would go to him on a Friday. He'd say, oh, hi, Sarah, so what have you failed at this week? And she'd say, well, and she said, she quotes that as the best lesson. She also had an expectation that he would say it. So it wasn't like a jab in the stomach, because it was part of his philosophy. And I think that she has created a culture which is very inclusive, it's very diverse, and it's very much about, you can make mistakes and you can come up with ideas, and if they're crazy, we'll still listen. And that is building momentum right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So when you go into the workplace, my vision is that everybody goes to work feeling joy. They still need to expand their potential, and there might be scary points in that, but they go with the ideas, oh, I can do what I do best, and I'll be appreciated, and I can use my imagination, and I might even come up with a crazy idea. Yeah. And they might even say, not today, but that's okay too.
Yeah. Well, like Sarah Blakely's father, and for him, failure was not a failure. It was a learning opportunity.
It was a learning opportunity.
And as soon as you frame it like that, failure, the sting is gone, and it becomes something you can actually embrace. And then it's a failing learning forward. And, what am I going to do differently in the future? And that is very productive.
It is. And my father-in-law was a professor of business studies at Hawaii and developed a University of Entrepreneurology, which my husband and I run. And he had a program which was called failure management, because he said, in success, managing your success is easy, but managing your failures or those mistakes is absolutely the learning experience. And I take that into my life now. It's like, my philosophy is that I need to take responsibility for everything I do. So if something comes up which goes wrong or I don't like, my first step is to say, okay, what's my responsibility here? And it's maybe that I don't like whatever's going on and I walk away from it, but it's my choice. And I think that appreciation is our choice to have, a positive point of view, not to ignore the downside or the dark side of life, but even when something really tragic happens, which has happened to a lot of people over the last 2 years, what do we learn? What do we learn? What do we appreciate about our preciousness of life, even in a business environment? And people might say, oh, but it's, I'm not the boss, so I can't do it. But you're there. You take your body to work. And, what are you asking for? And what are you doing to achieve the best that you can do with anything that you're going to do? And we know that, some people always do their best. I call best as BEST, be extraordinary starting today. You take that motive into your daily work. And if you find something you just can't do, I mean, I find things nowadays that I don't have the brain capacity to, then I go, okay, I'll ask about that. I'll ask for help, or I'll find out more how to do it, or I won't do it because it's not what I do best. Now that, and you're the same, but we're very fortunate because we've studied ourselves and we're mature in that sense. So it's really not putting anybody down, but inviting them to be upbeat in the workplace.
Yeah. And if I can take that back now to where we started our first chat about, the other video, which is all about appreciation in life. And we started off with the first and foremost person is important to appreciate is yourself.
Absolutely.
And you can really only appreciate other people when you appreciate yourself. And when you appreciate that they're not the same, that they're different, then you enhance appreciation tenfold. Because
and it is about respecting differences.
Yeah.
And that's where appreciate differences. Because if you don't know why somebody is different, then appreciate the finding out.
Yeah.
Even saying to somebody, well, that's really interesting that we're quite different. Let's explore what that is, because we'll find things that we can do together. If everybody was the same, we
boring.
We wouldn't have energy or want to appreciate, because we'd all be the same.
And there would be huge gaps and all sorts of different things.
Well, that's right. And I think the other thing is, as we go forward towards whatever our future is coming towards us, it's really appreciating those natural gifts.
Yeah.
I remember working in, it was part of the police force in London, the Metropolitan Police Force, and I was working with a profiling tool, and one of the gentlemen I was working with, I was showing him what his special natural skills were, and he loved it, because he said, oh yes, I'm really good at that. And he said, but round here, they don't do that. They expect you to be omnicompetent. And I love the word, because he said, as soon as they find out what you can't do, they send you off on a course to learn it. And that's been in the past a false path, I think, because you drown this person with new information that they don't really want to do. And it takes away what they naturally do well, which they would accelerate on. And so they lose that appreciation edge because they're omnicompetent. We can't do everything. It would be like all being the same. There'd be no choices.
And you know what? It's really nice to ask for help sometimes and show the people that you appreciate them for what they can do.
Yes.
So, and that's something that I think leaders can do as well. Again, I know that the leader's job is to make themselves redundant, but it's also good to say to somebody, I really could use your help here right now. I appreciate you for your expertise. But
and one of the main things I want to leave into business as my legacy is we can have different types of leaders. So I have these archetypes that I use, and they're all different types of leaders. Women and men are different types of men are different. So if we change the whole model of what a leadership looks like, and obviously it depends on the sector and what the service is, but that's okay. So not everybody has to be this tough, go-getting, profit motive person. This whole nature of doing people, profit, planet, creating harmony and balance, which women are really good at bringing in, that is a learning curve for all of us. So having an appreciation session once a week, I'm sure some of these leaders will go, oh, what's right, but it could be absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, could be. Well, that's a great idea for the future. And let's leave it at that. And hopefully this has been giving everybody who's been listening lots of food for thought. And we're going to have lots more conversations about this, for sure, and we need to have them. Thank you so much, Pauline. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next week.